Let's have a roll call of the members, please.
Ann Brinkman. Present. Helen Bucknam.
Present.
Mark Dietrich is absent. Tracy Gildner.
Present.
Dick Matthews.
Here.
Scott Ohm.
Here.
George Pond is absent. Steve Timms.
Here. And if we can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I move to approve the order of the agenda.
Second. Call for the vote.
And that motion passes unanimously. Tracy, this was on the agenda. I think you're repeating it for
sorry.
minutes. So I'll
But yes.
vote it or record it affirmative, okay?
Okay. Thanks. Sorry. I thought it was the other one.
Next up is approval of the minutes from May 19th.
I move to approve the minutes of the May 19th, 2011 meeting.
Second.
Vote.
Okay, and that motion passes with Commissioners Timms and Gildner abstaining.
I'd like to welcome Commissioner Dietrich. Thanks for coming. Good to see you. Sorry we started without you. That's all right, just by like a minute, so that's fine. Okay, next up on the agenda is the public forum. This is the time for any person to speak on any subject not appearing on the agenda. If you're here to speak or make comments on anything on the agenda, please join us at that time in just a minute or two.
And we don't have anybody signed up to speak tonight under public forum.
Great. Thanks, Meredith. Next up are the public hearings. First, we'll hear case number WZ-11-03, a city-initiated rezoning of the Wadsworth corridor to mixed-use commercial. For the city, we have a presentation from Sarah. Great.
Testing. Good evening. My name is Sarah Showalter. I'm Planner 2 in the Community Development Department, and I'll be presenting on case number WZ-11-03, which is a city-initiated rezoning of the Wadsworth corridor. I'd like to enter into the record the case file, the contents of this presentation, the ordinance, and also note that notification requirements have been met, so there's jurisdiction to hear this case. The area that's proposed for rezoning is outlined in blue on the screen in front of you. I would like to note that this boundary follows the boundaries of existing urban renewal area on Wadsworth, and we have not deviated from those boundaries in any way. I'd also note that there is a large swath of property here at the southeast corner of Wadsworth and 44th that's not included. And that is part of the urban renewal boundary, but it has been rezoned already to mixed-use commercial. So it has actually already been rezoned to the zoning that's proposed tonight for the rest of the corridor. That rezoning was completed a few months ago. This slide depicts the existing zoning in the area that's proposed to be rezoned to mixed-use commercial, or MUC. The majority of this pinkish reddish color that's darker that you see is C1 or commercial 1 zoning. That does make up the majority of the existing zoning on the corridor. However, there's a few other zonings in this area. There's 3 planned commercial developments, which are in gray. There's a few small areas of more restricted commercial zoning, including RC, which stands for restricted commercial, and NC, which is this tiny pink area here, which stands for neighborhood commercial. And then there's one small area of C2 or commercial 2 zoning. And that blue color that you see here connotes the area that was already rezoned to mixed-use commercial. In terms of what the existing zoning in the area would allow for today, The majority, as I mentioned before, is zoned C1. This allows for a pretty wide range of commercial land uses, building heights up to 50 feet, and it does allow for residential use, but in a very limited fashion. It can't be the primary use. It has to be located either on upper stories or, if it is on a ground level, behind a commercial use at the ground level. And there's also a limit on how much square footage could be residential within a building. And those restrictions are also found in the other commercial zone districts in this area, the NC and the RC. And those districts are very similar to C1. They would allow for the same building height, but they do have slightly less permissive range of commercial land uses, some more neighborhood serving, and some of the higher intensity commercial uses not allowed in those districts. The zoning that is proposed to apply to this entire area is mixed-use commercial, or MUC. This is relatively new zoning that was adopted by the city last year in 2010. This zoning was developed to apply to major commercial corridors like Wadsworth and hopefully encourage mixed-use development in those areas. One of the reasons why we targeted this zoning for Wadsworth is because of adopted city plans that call for Wadsworth to be redeveloped with higher density development in a mixed-use fashion. Those plans include the Wadsworth Corridor Sub-Area Plan, which was adopted in 2007, as well as the comprehensive plan called Envision Wheat Ridge, which was adopted in 2009. And these maps just show depicting the vision for Wadsworth established in those plans, calling for, on the left you have what's in the sub-area plan, and kind of anywhere you see this reddish-orange hatch is area that's called medium-high density mixed use, which overlaps very closely with the proposed rezoning boundaries. And then, of course, we have more recently the structure plan is the name of the map that you see a portion of here from our Envision Wheat Ridge comprehensive plan, which called for the redevelopment of Wadsworth, adding a mix of uses including residential, as well as establishing between 44th and 38th a mixed-use town center. The proposed zoning, I'm just going to walk through a quick summary of what would be allowed under this proposed zoning. It does continue to allow a wide range of commercial uses as the existing zoning would. It also opens up a lot more flexibility in terms of residential uses. There are a few land uses that are specifically not permitted under MUC. Those include car sales, or repair if there's outdoor display. If you're able to keep the vehicles indoors, then it is allowed. Adult entertainment and pawnbrokers are other uses that are not allowed. There's also another category of use called conditional uses, and these are allowed only if you first obtain a conditional use permit, which is an administrative process that looks at site design and potential impacts on neighboring properties. And those conditional uses apply to things like drive-through uses, gas stations, and wholesale. In terms of building height, you could do a maximum of 4 stories for a single-use building. If the building is mixed use, meaning it has, for example, retail and office in the same building, or retail and residential, you can go up to 6 stories. However, regardless of what uses are in the building, if it's within 100 feet of a residential property with a single or two-family home, the building cannot be taller than 4 stories anywhere within that 100-foot buffer. And that restriction does not apply if you're separated by an arterial or collector. But anywhere where the residential lot is adjacent to a lot zoned MUC, that would apply. One of the things that we heard in some of the outreach we did to the Wheat Ridge community as we were writing the mixed-use zoning last year was concern about transitions into existing residential areas. Obviously, there are some existing residential neighborhoods that border the rezoning area, and there would be protections for those areas built in. The code requires certain transitions when you're adjacent to residentially zoned lots, including landscape buffers and screen walls wherever a parking lot or a drive-through use is adjacent to any kind of residential use. And we also have some transitions that are specifically for residential lots that have a single or two-family home. And those apply to buildings that might be taller than 1 story. First of all, you have to have, even if you are just 1 story, you have to have at least a 10-foot setback or that has to be landscaped as a buffer at the ground level. And then for each story above 2 stories, an additional 5-foot setback. So you get up to 20 feet total if you're doing a 4-story building. There are also architectural standards as part of the mixed-use commercial zone district that are intended to encourage quality development. The idea, obviously, is to establish Wadsworth as a mixed-use town center, or at least a large part of it, and really create a place that will be a destination in Wheat Ridge and have high-quality design. So there are requirements for windows or transparency at the ground floor. Build-to requirements which are flexible, but generally require buildings to be placed close to the street and parking behind rather than the reverse, so that pedestrians do not have to walk along parking lots. There are requirements for material variation in the design of buildings, as well as variation and articulation of building facades, so you don't end up with monotonous blank walls. And where there are parking lots and drive-through uses, there are screening requirements, especially where they abut a sidewalk or public street. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about the process that we've gone through that kind of led up to where we are tonight in this rezoning. We actually started outreach to property owners along this corridor in January, and I apologize, that should say January 2010. It was well over a year ago. We had the Wadsworth Summit here and had great attendance. We had a lot of property owners there, and the purpose of that meeting really was to let them know that we were going to start working on mixed-use zoning with the idea of potentially doing a city-initiated rezoning of Wadsworth. And we distributed a survey at that meeting where we asked for input on some of the content items in the code, such as how nonconforming uses would be treated. We also specifically asked if there was support for the idea of a city-initiated rezoning, and there was great support for that. We had a vast majority of property owners state either very strong support or somewhat strong support for that concept. So that's partially why staff and city council decided to move forward with city-initiated rezoning. We did want to follow up with property owners one more time after the code had actually been written, and we could say, okay, this is the final version of the mixed-use zoning proposed for Wadsworth. And that was done in November of this year. We also sent another survey in the mail immediately after that meeting, asking property owners to state opposition or support for the concept of a rezoning. We only received about 13 surveys back, and at the time we had 3 owners who were in opposition, and City Council decided to move forward with the rezoning area as proposed, including those 3 property owners, but did ask staff to conduct outreach and try and find out if there was a way to address some of their concerns. And staff did do that. 2 of the property owners live in Wheat Ridge or nearby, and we were able to meet with them and talk to them. And very quickly after that, both submitted in writing that they were in support of the rezoning. We are still aware of 1 property owner who is in opposition. We've not been able to talk directly with the property owner, who's based out of state. We've exchanged letters with their attorney. And this is property located at the northeast corner of northeast corner of 44th and Wadsworth. And I'm happy to elaborate a little bit more if there's interest on some of the reasons that they've cited opposition. Staff's really tried to address them, although, like I said, unfortunately, we haven't been able to actually have a conversation. And at this point, that's the main opposition that's been expressed directly to us. The rezoning, a city-initiated rezoning does require a neighborhood meeting, like a private rezoning application would, where any property owner within 600 feet of the rezoning area is invited. So we held that meeting in April. We had over 30 attendees. And generally, a lot of the questions focused more on, well, what will happen after the new zoning is in place? Is the city aware of development proposals for specific sites? There were questions about the future of Wadsworth and the potential plans for that street to be widened, and what that impact might be on pedestrians in terms of being able to cross safely, especially if we're looking at trying to make this more of a destination for people in the city and encourage pedestrian activity there. As I mentioned, the neighborhood meeting is one of the first steps in the process. The very first step is a formal resolution by City Council initiating the rezoning and establishing the boundaries, and those boundaries have not changed from that initial resolution, which was adopted in March by City Council. After the neighborhood meeting, the only other formal requirements are a Planning Commission public hearing, which we're here for tonight, and make a recommendation to City Council, who will hold a final public hearing. In conclusion, staff does recommend moving forward with this city-initiated rezoning. It does meet the rezoning criteria that are established in the code. First of all, there have been changes in the area due to the designation of an urban renewal area, traffic congestion on Wadsworth, and deterioration of land in that area, underutilized parcels. The Wadsworth Corridor Urban Renewal Plan was adopted in 2001, establishing a lot of those changes. The proposed area that's to be rezoned is compatible. The proposed zoning in that area is compatible with the surrounding area. We do hope that there will be economic benefits associated with the zone change. As Planning Commission is pretty well aware, the mixed-use commercial zoning has a almost entirely administrative process for development review, and one of the reasons we're hoping that getting that zoning on the ground might help stimulate some redevelopment that will help overall with economic development goals for the city and build a more diverse tax base as our economic development plan calls for. In terms of infrastructure and traffic improvements, as sites redevelop, they are required to go through site plan review by staff. And at that time, any technical documents relating to stormwater drainage as well as traffic improvements would have to be provided. And the city would be requesting the developer to provide improvements as needed. So we feel comfortable that those needs will be met. We do not see any adverse effect on public health or safety. And as I mentioned earlier, the proposed zoning does meet the city's adopted plans for this area, not only to just generally redevelop with higher density mixed use, but specifically to have a mixed use town center along part of the corridor. And that concludes my presentation.
Great, thank you. At this point, normally we would hear from the applicant, but the applicant in this case is the city, so we'll move forward with, I think we'll get to questions for staff in just a moment, but I wanted to see if there were any members of the public that had signed up to make comments.
We didn't have anybody signed up on the sheet in the back, but, there's a few audience members. I would suspect that most of them are here for this case, so
Sure.
go ahead and pose that.
Okay. Is there anyone here who would like to make comments, ask questions regarding this case? Great. Let's start with you in the back, if you want to come on up and state your name and address for us, and proceed.
I'm Louise Turner. I live on West 38th Avenue, 11256. Been in Wheat Ridge a long time. I have very strong reservations about this. I'm hoping to learn enough about it tonight to have a definite opinion of being for or against it. My normal reaction is that there seem to be far more problems that can be created by this than can be solved. There are 4 things that I would like for you to be sure to consider. I think the first of those is the fact that this is not a citizen-driven matter. It's not even a developer-driven matter. It's on a wish list of the elected officials. And we had massive objections during the sub-area plans from the people north of 44th Avenue regarding density. They were very, very much opposed to having their single-family neighborhood become a high-density neighborhood. And I noticed on a sheet that I picked up from the planning department some time back that they were drawn in a color as having responded very negatively to this matter. At the time that they were all speaking in opposition, the mayor very carefully told individuals one by one that nobody could rezone their properties except they themselves. And of course at that time that was true, but that law has since been changed so that now the city can rezone the property without the approval of the property owners, and apparently even without the knowledge of some of them. I had noticed on this sheet that there was a very large area where nobody had responded. And I called one of the 2 owners involved in it who told me that they knew nothing about this proposed rezoning. So it seems to me that might be something as a planning group that you would want to check into and find out if people do or do not have to be notified when it is their property that's being rezoned. The second thing that I'd like you to consider is that we don't have the normal checks and balances in a case like this that we had years ago and that we normally have in a rezoning, where it used to be the Chamber of Commerce, now it's the developers come in and ask for a rezoning. And then it goes to the City Council, who sits as an impartial body, analyzes it, and makes its own decisions. In the case where the city is the one initiating the rezoning, it is virtually impossible for them to be sitting in the position of an impartial judge. And I think that's extremely important. The third thing that I think you should try to consider is what is being proposed here really any better than what it is now zoned? This is a commercial zoning area. It has always been considered the prime commercial in the city of Wheat Ridge for Central Wheat Ridge. And all of a sudden, we're going to stuff, cram, whatever the word might be, multiple units, either by removing some of these along the street, by putting them between those businesses and places like Safeway, or by simply redoing the whole thing in accordance with the plan that was provided by the Winston Associates, where Their proposal was that Wadsworth would be 4 to 5 story buildings, wall to wall, the entire length of Wadsworth, with a few openings where people could get behind that wall of tall buildings and park behind. There are a lot of people who like the atmosphere of an open shopping center. They like being able to look into the area and see Safeway sitting over there, for example, where they can easily go in and park and go do their shopping. And the thought that perhaps we're going to put a 4-story building between, say, the ice cream shop or McDonald's, between those buildings and Safeway, and maybe a parking garage, who knows, kind of goes against the grain. At any rate, I think you need to really analyze and determine if a mixed use is an improvement. The last thing that I'd like you to really be aware of and look into, and this is probably the most important. Way back when Mr. Winston was making all of these recommendations, total emphasis on everything had to be taller, more dense, thicker, all as possible, as much as possible. I asked him, they had meetings where we could circulate and talk to the people of his staff, and I asked him if he had done any population studies. His answer was, no, I haven't. Maybe somebody on my staff has. You can ask him. Now, there haven't been any population studies done for over 20 years. The last time that I know of when there was one done, it was done by the Regional Council of Governments. Did it for all of the surrounding Denver communities, analyzed what was allowed under the existing zonings, and came up with a recommendation, not a recommendation, an estimate of what at full development would be the population of that community. Wheat Ridge came out at 92,000 people. At the time, we were what we are now, a very small community that isn't growing. Now, since that time, of course, all of the restrictions on height and density for certain areas have been removed. The council is free to go with whatever it chooses, like it was before we had the charter restrictions. It just seems like maybe we should consider, if we turn out to have 100,000 people, which isn't very much more than what COG estimated, or 200,000 people in this little 10 to 12 square mile area, are we really going to have higher quality of life? Are we really going to have a better economic situation? The way it is now, where we've had virtually no population growth in many, many years, the staff is multiplied every year, the city government keeps getting bigger. If we suddenly have 100,000 people, what's going to happen? The character of the community has always been quite important to people, and what Wheat Ridge has always had going for it is that it's a great place to live. It's a great place to raise families. It's just a good place to live. That seems to have kind of gotten lost in the last 5 or 6 years, where every emphasis has been on development as much as possible. Every time something has been a hindrance to any kind of development, the zoning law has been changed. The protections that we used to have in it, many of them are gone, and they might be some of the things that the Planning Commission could look into someday. But if we turn out with 100 or 200,000 people, are we really that much better off? And I think since none of this has been studied for a long, long period of time, and we are having this kind of a promotion of higher density and the whole bit, maybe that's something that the Planning Commission, because you're a planning group, you're not a political group, you're a planning group, that maybe this would be something for you to look into. As it stands now, you are the only body which, right now, on this particular rezoning, you are the only body that can have an impartial hearing. It simply is not possible when the applicant is the person in charge of making the laws, in charge of judging on whether something is or not it will be improved. So those are my requests that you consider, and thank you very much.
Ms. Turner, thanks for coming and speaking and for raising those points. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Yes, sir. Please come on up, and if you could give us your name and your address, please.
My name is Michael Smith. I'm an attorney with Jacobs Chase downtown. I'm the nefarious lawyer who represents the single out-of-state property owner who remains in opposition. And I think probably I'll sort of go to this conclusion first and then be glad to talk to you about details. My client owns property in many states, and we've been through a lot of rezoning and development issues with them. And quite frankly, the reason we're opposed to this is we don't think it's going to work. That the concept of this sort of city center zoning and sort of this multi-use pedestrian-based environment is not a concept that has proved to be successful on a sort of rezoning process. You look at the three primary examples here in Colorado, in the context of Stapleton, Belmar, and Lowry. Each one of those had some factors that don't exist here. Unified landowner development driving it. None of those sites are bisected by major streets. That development, that pedestrian, commercial, mixed-use development is all internal to the site. It's not something that contends with what is a functionally complete pedestrian barrier, which is Wadsworth, and to a secondary degree, 44th. You can't have the sort of pedestrian stroll shop experience when you've got to dash across Wadsworth and sometimes take 2 cycles of the light to make it. The other thing you have here is you have a series of properties up and down Wadsworth that are owned by a variety of people, covering a variety of development, everything from the bright, shiny bank building, which sits far back from the street and has a nice sort of expansive parking lot that you get to review. You have the Safeway shopping center. You have some empty buildings. You have some small commercial buildings that are occupied by local retail establishments. But there's no one major property owner to drive that development. And unless somebody's going to invest in assembling one of those areas into an assemblage that you can do something meaningful with, most of your sites are too small to support 4-story development or 6-story development if you go to a mixed-use residential basis. You're doing this in hopes that there will be economic development. There's no concept that you're actually going to have economic development and improvement. That's their hope from the part of the staff. My client's property generates $200,000 a year in sales tax. If you replace that with some street-level commercial and some residential on top of that, you won't get that level of sales tax again. Because the kind of sales tax development that comes from small storefronts on the first floor that are not big square footages is not going to generate an equivalent replacement for that kind of revenue. The other thing you will discover is that when you are doing, and I've spent a lot of years doing mixed-use development in a number of communities around the West, when you put residential development on top of commercial development, you don't get big box, you don't get big volume stores, you're doing small mom and pop, small sort of boutique things. You're not getting big economic drivers because of your development constraints in terms of size, what you can sell. The other thing you need to pay attention to is the fact that as the economy has proven almost toxic for real estate development, particularly in the last 3 or 4 years, mixed-use developments like this are the first ones to go south. Because what happens is they're not homeowner-driven developments. You don't get people buying condominiums in mixed-use developments. And the trend in the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac approvals for first home purchases is away from approving these buildings for those kinds of programs. These will remain rental properties. You're not going to get people who invest in being in the neighborhood. You look at all of the other neighborhoods where, like Denver's rezoning in hopes that Colfax might be something, Broadway, all of those neighborhoods, nobody's been able to put together a development plan that actually causes these places to be redeveloped. You put these nice overlays on them, you put these nice sort of tools out there, but But nobody has the economic power nor the economic ownership necessary for this kind of stuff to occur. You get this great set of restrictions about what you can and can't do. Those are the kind of things that cause people like my clients to say, you know what, it's not worth reinvesting in our building. We'll maintain it, but we're not going to, there's no reason to upgrade it. My client's site has a bank in the front and the old Safeway store, which is now the Pep Boys, in the back. Works great economically, contributes a great deal to the city economically. If you were to turn that site into something else, first thing somebody would have to do, they'd have to buy the bank out of that site. All of those buildings would have to be leveled, and you'd put up something on street side. You'd never get the development, you'd never get the sales tax dollars, you would get some people there, and anytime they're going to do anything in that pedestrian neighborhood, what's the first thing they have to do? They have to cross Wadsworth, they have to cross 44th. Neither one of those is something you want to do strolling with your lab or your baby stroller. It's not, you don't have the kind of interior neighborhood that allows you to build pedestrian friendly. We remain opposed to it. We have had projects, other sites owned by this client in similar situations. Community comes in, does this rezoning. We have yet to be in one that was successful. And we don't think that there's any reason to try and impose requirements and restrictions and build additional barriers to what's there and discourage people from taking care of what they've got in hopes that somebody someday might come along. If the city wants to come in and use the Urban Renewal District as a tool to exercise eminent domain and condemn a bunch of properties and provide that assemblage, then you might have some concept, assuming you can get around the barriers of Wadsworth and 44th. So we remain opposed. We don't believe it's going to be successful. We don't believe the tools are in place to encourage landowners or developers to come in and assemble a parcel. And we don't believe that there's going to be any near-term economic effect or any medium-term. Long-term, our property's got constraints that exist out to 2023, and we don't see any time at which we would ever relinquish those. And those kind of property constraints then will remain in place permanently. So we are very much opposed to it because we don't have any optimism that it's going to be successful.
Okay. Thank you for what you had to say, and I believe I've got a question for you.
Can I ask a question, if you don't mind? So, from your experience with your other properties, did those cities have different types of mixed-use zonings like Wheat Ridge? So we have a mixed-use commercial versus,
No,
or did you see just a mixed-use blanket?
The problem is, there are a couple of problems. One is that if you're going to do mixed-use, pedestrian-friendly development, you really have to have an environment where you're excluding the automobile from being a major impact. If you look at Belmar, there's no concept that you cross Alameda to get to those properties on the north side of Alameda or cross over to get from Belmar to the Lakewood City Hall. At Stapleton, again, all of that development has been internal, and you have driven the car out of the middle of the development. Here, unfortunately, your defining feature is Wadsworth, a great street, 6 lanes. That's a lot of traffic. And I understand it's a big street and it's overburdened, and you'd like to maybe not so have that. But Wadsworth is a state highway, as I recall. Isn't it a state
Yes.
highway? You're not going to change that fact. That's a fact that becomes a fact that drives people away. It's just like having railroad tracks down the middle of a development. You just can't make it work. If you wanted to, say, develop a quadrant that would be all the northeast corner and drive it back into the neighborhood and assemble a big parcel there and assume that Wadsworth and 44th are boundaries, you might be able to do something better with that. But having Wadsworth as the middle, the thing that everybody has to cross if they want to cross the street because they see a great shop across the street, they got to go down to a major light across. There's there's none of that sort of weave that you build up internally at Belmar where people wander back and forth all the time. And Belmar is not yet economically successful.
So the point I was trying to make was the Belmar area and other areas, they have one mixed-use zone, where Wheat Ridge tried to address a different type of area or a different type of use, having a mixed-use commercial versus a mixed-use whatever else. So that's my point, was those areas only had a blanket mixed use versus Wheatridge is trying to address the fact that I don't think that anybody has any aspirations of, making Wadsworth walkable, but,
Runnable or dashable.
yeah, runnable, dashable. The other question I have real quick is, when your property was put in as part of the urban renewal, did you see any impacts directly from property values, interest in the property? No. So there was no impact to that.
No positive impact whatsoever. And
Was there any
frankly,
negative?
The fact that it's part of an urban renewal district is, if we were to go to sell it, it's a factor that weighs negatively on purchase price.
Okay. Okay. But you saw the needle didn't move either way, just possibly because of the current economic times.
No.
Okay.
And, we have, until 2023, and then when the covenants get renewed, we have to deal with the fact that we have cross easements between us and our neighboring properties that burden our property, that unless everybody makes the same decision or the properties all get reassembled under the same ownership, we can't do anything differently because we're obligated to keep easements and parking areas open for the use of the other owners who are co-beneficiaries.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else?
So I presume that the letters I have written become part of the record for the Planning Commission to consider.
They are not in the case file. They can be entered into the record if you would like.
We would like that, please.
Sure.
Does anyone else have questions for Mr. Smith? Okay. Thanks again for your comments. Is there anyone else who would like to speak about this case? Yes, go ahead and come on up. If you could give us your name and your address, please, and give us your comments.
Hello, I'm David Kaiser, and we live at 42nd Wadsworth.
I'm sorry, could you speak into the microphone, please?
We live at 42nd Wadsworth, down 3 Acre Lane, and the last little drawing I seen was combining 4 lots together and make one large commercial lot on the corner there. And
Excuse me, I think you might be referring to the next case that we're about to hear, which is an application filed by Community Credit Union for a 4-lot consolidation.
okay.
Yeah, that's our next case, so
hold
can you hang around for another few minutes, and then if you'd like to give us some comments? Okay, thanks.
So, I'd like to follow up on something Louise had.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, we can, if we have like further questions, maybe that address some of Ms. Turner's or Mr. Smith's comments, that maybe staff can address those issues for us, or, and you've got something?
Sarah, can you explain to us, as well as to the viewing audience and the people in the seats in front of us, the notice process, and can you tell us if there were any returns on the notice process?
Sure. The first thing I want to state, just to make it clear, is that we are not required by code to notify property owners when there is a comprehensive rezoning such as this one. So legally, that's not required in any way. We are required to put notification of any rezoning in the transcript. However, even though that's not legally required, City Council directed us to do a lot of outreach to property owners. So we've actually done several mailings. Phone numbers for property owners are not public record. We get the records from the Jefferson County Clerk. So we get mailing addresses for every property owner in the rezoning area. They were mailed a survey at the end of 2010 that included a specific request to reply. Only about 13 property owners actually responded. Some property owners, we always put phone numbers for planners, encourage them to contact us with any questions. A few property owners did call in as a result of receiving that mailing. We also, I should add, had mailed all of the property owners for the Wadsworth Summit in January and for the property owner meeting we had in November of last year. Then we did another mailing about a month ago, even though we're not required to by code, notifying every property owner that the rezoning was proceeding
and notifying them of the public hearing dates.
How are those notifications? Are they just letters? Are they certified letters? What are they?
It's a letter.
It's a letter. Okay, so there's no tracking of it to see if.
No, I mean, again, we're not even required to send the letter, so we did not spend, it's a significant cost to us to send them certified.
Okay, but there were none returned because of refused or.
Oh, yes, we did receive some back in the mail, but unfortunately, we received the most current address on file that that owner has with the county, as this is who to contact.
Okay.
And beyond that, we really have no way to get a hold of a property owner.
I just wanted it to be in the record. And again, I'm just clarifying, the properties that are showing here that are under the proposal to be rezoned are the same properties that are under the urban renewal, and there was a whole process for that, obviously, where owners could come before and were notified and all the posting and all that, right?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Tracy?
Yeah, I have a question, and I know this has started before I came in here, so if I ask a silly one, I'm not sure. Do we have mixed zoning anywhere else in Wheat Ridge that can show us that it's done good, or?
Sure. Well, so the mixed-use zoning was just adopted in September of last year.
Okay.
So since that, on the books, and then since that time, it's only been applied on the ground to that property that I showed in my presentation that's at the southeast corner of Wadsworth and 44th, and there is a development application on the table for that project. It's also been rezoned to a property on West 44th Avenue, and that was a private rezoning. We actually had the property owner request the mixed-use zoning. And in that case, it was different sub-districts. They're right next to I-70, so the majority of the property was rezoned to mixed-use interstate. But so those are the two places today where that mixed-use zoning actually exists.
And to clarify, this is the first, well, this will be the second time that we've been asked to recommend a mixed-use commercial zoning area, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. The other one was mixed-use interstate. Have we done it? We haven't done any mixed-use neighborhood yet.
Well, there was mixed-use neighborhood on the back of that same rezoning that had mixed-use interstate.
That's right. Thank you.
And then the other one is like with Bomar, didn't the city go in and buy that whole area itself and then they redeveloped it? So it was just a one thing. And do we have anything that shows us that this can be good with just having a private owner that owns just a property? Do you know it owns just one property to where Bomar is owned by the city and it was made that way? I know this isn't Bomar, but you still have Wadsworth and it's considered, you know, it's going to chase a small company out of there or something. And I do own a business in Wheat Ridge, and I'm just curious if this was going to happen to my business.
Right.
You know, I mean.
Well, one of the things we heard loud and clear from all of the property owners on Wadsworth was, you know, we like being here, we don't want to feel pushed out, and that's not pretty, there's maybe one or two properties that have uses that would become non-conforming, and even non-conforming are allowed to stay and expand.
But like the Midas is allowed to stay? And
Yes. So and the Midas people actually were one of the property owners that specifically stated support. So we have a lot of existing businesses. The property owner of Safeway also is one that we've heard
How hard
from.
would it be to do a survey with the whole neighborhood? Maybe send out a survey.
We did do a survey.
You did?
Yes, and that was what was mailed in November of 2011. We also we gave out a survey when we invited every property owner to a meeting here.
Okay, I guess I just missed that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Okay, well, those are my concerns. I'm just curious with the Wadsworth thing. I mean, people crossing Wadsworth again.
Right, and I guess I didn't really address the first part of your question, which was at this point, the city or the Urban Renewal Authority is not contemplating making any large assemblages of land. That's certainly possible because it is an urban renewal area, but we've actually heard property owners that have been engaged say that even if it was just their own individual property, they think the zoning is an advantage to them. We also have some that are saying no.
Right, is it like in the state? Do we have it somewhere besides like a Bomar or something like we want to do with each owner being able to change it? Do we have somewhere that shows us that how well they've done with something like that, or?
Well, unfortunately not. We have one development on the table. It's only been 6 months since the zoning.
Okay.
So at this point, we don't. It's just brand new.
All right, thanks.
Steve?
Just a couple of questions for staff, please. Just regarding the northern boundary, again, just to clarify, the reason why it doesn't include Red Lobster and the properties to the north, those were not included in the urban renewal area, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then my second question is for the property on the northeast corner of 44th and Wadsworth, according to the new zoning, would a bank and a Pep Boys be a legal conforming?
Yes.
Under the new zoning, so there would not be any nonconformities with the use?
That's correct.
And then my last question is, you referenced a little bit, and I appreciate that with Tracy's, with some property owners that were in support, that you got letters of support for it, including, you said, like Midas and Safeway?
Yes.
Can you just name a couple, since we didn't get any records of the written stuff?
Yeah, and that survey, it is on record when we shared it with City Council and study session, so I'm sorry that it wasn't included here. We had, I don't have the map in front of me, but we had about 6 property owners that confirmed they were in support. Honestly, a lot of the property owners just didn't respond, but there's been several we've had phone calls with. They've several that have attended the meeting. We had over 30 property owners at the Wadsworth Summit, and they're very aware of what the city is planning. We've sent 3 mailings to them and know that they're aware, even though they didn't officially respond.
All right, thank you.
Mark, do you have any questions?
Does this negatively impact any existing businesses if they decide to do nothing? If the zoning is passed?
If they decided to do nothing, I'm not aware of any negative impacts. It wouldn't affect their day-to-day operations, their taxes, or anything. If you have a more specific example of what a negative.
Can they change the zoning without the property owner knowing? Like the lady who...
Yes, you are, as we are legally allowed to do city-initiated rezonings without property owner knowledge or consent. However, we've done at least at this point 5 mailings to every property owner, and if you include notices for meetings, including the most recent mailing that was sent a month ago with a map showing the rezoning area and stating when these meetings would be, notifying property owners that was their opportunity if they wanted to oppose or support to come and speak.
How hard would it be for us to get the surveys to look at them to see how people responded to it? Is it a big deal, or is it public record? Can we go and...
Yes, well, as I mentioned, we shared it with City Council in a study session, so that was included in their packets, which are always put up on the web. So they are there now, and staff could definitely send that to you as well if you're interested in seeing that.
Ann?
Just following up on a request that Mr. Smith had, that their letters of opposition be included in the packet. Would that be included in our packet, or would that be included in the City Council packet if and when this goes before them?
It will be entered into the record at this point, which obviously can't really be in your packets since we've already given them to you, but it'll be officially in the record, and we can definitely include them for City Council. City Council's actually already seen the first letter of opposition and the letter that we wrote back in response.
Okay, thank you.
Just one sec, Scott. Real quickly, Mr. Smith, just to follow up on what Sarah said. Just if you could come up here for just a sec to answer this quick question, just with respect to what Sarah said. Do you feel that everything you said tonight reflects the main concerns that you and your client have stated in the letters of opposition that we don't have in front of us but will be entered into the record?
I think the letters they probably cover less of the economic discussion, partly because my background was I've done a lot of mixed-use high-rise development in areas where they really are pedestrian-focused, ski area villages, that kind of stuff, where you become very sensitive to things that are barriers to pedestrian environments. And I didn't go into that in a huge amount. We did talk in summary about the fact that their experience and mine has been that this kind of rezoning ends up looking and working the way the one did in the Aurora Town Center model, which didn't go anywhere.
Was that owned by one person, or was it owned by a bunch of different people?
Aurora was trying to do essentially the same thing. They were trying, and it's been, I'm giving away some age issues here, 10, 15 years, where they were trying to do the same sort of thing, to encourage a town center development around the Aurora Mall neighborhood. And it never went anywhere. There was nobody who owned enough property to have the economic drive to do it. There was the barrier of Alameda that just makes it impossible. Potentially the owner of the Aurora Mall might have enough if they want to knock that puppy down and redo it, but you don't have even that kind of big parcel here. Belmar had some advantages because the mall site was big enough that you could build a combination of buildings and uses and have an interior, but even the interior is surrounded by acres of parking lots.
And that was bought, like Bomar was just one owner, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make, I
The
didn't know
estate
that.
sold
I
it,
was pretty sure
I
that's what
believe, through got it condemned out by the city, and the city turned it over to Opus.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious about those two.
Okay.
I would love to see, there are lots of great pedestrian neighborhoods in the city, and I think pedestrian, sort of a street-friendly development's a great thing. It's just that I'm afraid that this is a site that is missing some key benefits. And I think the other piece that you guys need to look at is what you expect for upper-level residential, whether you intend it to be primarily rental, transient rental kind of stuff, or whether you want people who are going to be homeowners buying those and investing in the neighborhood. Because one of the problems we've had in the mountains with these kinds of residential projects is as people leave and units become rentals, you lose your Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac qualifications for federally guaranteed acquisition loans, and those properties then become a real problem to keep full.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that we sort of had the breadth of scope of what was in those letters in front of us, since we don't have the letters in front of us.
The letters are not short.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for helping us out. Scott.
I have one kind of, question for Sarah. Mr. Smith brought something up, and about crossing Wadsworth, it becoming 6 lanes. Obviously we've seen a lot of examples in the past where there are now elevated crossings across US 36, like at 120th and 36, and through the downtown. There's even one I've seen like Ward and 52nd that crosses Kipling or Ward over there. And I know that what I've seen here on some of the comments in the case file says that it's improbable that it would be elevated. It's obviously an issue that some people have brought up in some of the past meetings. How pie in the sky is it? And what would be the process for even considering down the road, not necessarily for tonight, but down the road, of some type of elevated walkway to go over Wadsworth?
I honestly don't feel like I can state how pie in the sky it is, what the probability is something like that happening. I think obviously the number one reason why that was kind of alluded to in the neighborhood meeting when some folks were asking about the possibility of it is just that it's very expensive. But I wouldn't say that it's totally off the table, mainly because for anything major to happen to Wadsworth, we would first have to do really CDOT and our Public Works Department would work in conjunction to do an environmental impact study, and they would have to look at kind of all possibilities. And if especially, and that involves public input process. So part of the public input was that they wanted that to be one of the alternatives considered to have an elevated crossing. Then it would have to be at least considered. And part of that would probably be looking at what that means in terms of cost impacts.
Okay. Ann.
I just want to try to address one of Ms. Turner's other concerns with regards to density within this block of area right here, this 95 acres. I can't recall if there was discussion about what is the absolute most you could cram pack in there if everything became mixed use with residential on top and a commercial on the bottom. Was there any?
There's not, we haven't really tried to calculate that for a few reasons. One is because, as we know, the code doesn't set, here's a maximum units per acre, so you can't just do a simple calculation. Each site would be a little bit different depending on what uses were on it, how the parking was addressed, how the open space was addressed, all the different things that would impact how big the building could actually be. Very roughly, we've approximated you could easily end up with several hundred new units in this area.
And then, what percentage of land to the city is this 95 acres? Off the top of your head, Meredith?
Quick math.
2%? 5%?
I'd say less than that.
I'd say less.
Maybe even less? I don't know.
Okay.
Less than 1%.
So we're impacting less, maybe a guesstimate is less than 1%? With this mixed use zoning? We don't even want to guess. Okay. Okay.
A very minimal percentage, but
Overall.
in terms of, of the entire city.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to get an idea. Thank you.
Really briefly, in regards to the building height, which cross streets on Wadsworth are defined as collectors? I'm just thinking about the residential streets, for example, on the west side of Wadsworth, 39th and 41st, and so 42nd and so forth, which might be impacted. Which ones of those are technically collector streets?
38th and 44th are arterials, and is 41st a collector?
Okay.
And that's...
But it would be, conceivably could be exempt from the more restrictive...
for a property across the street.
Yeah.
From it, yes.
Yeah, okay. Two more quick questions. Why I understand the rationale for sort of sticking to the urban renewal defined boundaries, but it does make for sort of a patchwork, especially on that west side where we're excluding a number of R3 zoned blocks and kind of, moving around them almost like, cogs in a gear or something. Why not make the boundaries more uniform and provide a more uniform boundary, which would, since we're talking about mixed use, would actually include some residentially zoned, currently residentially zoned areas?
Mm-hmm. Long ago, when we were probably getting ready for the Wadsworth Summit in January 2010, where we were first thinking about this mixed-use zoning and the concept of a city-initiated rezoning, we heard from both City Council, and kind of the message we gave to property owners was that residential properties would not be rezoned, and we would just be contemplating those properties that have commercial zoning and are within the urban renewal area. And that was kind of just a policy decision made in the beginning. It does result in some jagged lines, but depending on how successful the zoning is, and if there's interest in the future, we could potentially add some of the multifamily properties, and there's certainly at any time any of those property owners could privately rezone.
So that might have been more of a political decision as opposed to strictly looking at assembling the potential to assemble a unified block of property.
Partially, and I think just residential zoning right now only allows for residential uses, so it's a much bigger change kind of than the commercially zoned.
Okay, yeah, I get that. One more real quick thing. What are the impacts? What would the impacts conceivably be of not including the northeast corner of 44th and Wadsworth in this mixed-use commercial zoning?
Specifically the property owned by because it's not the whole corner, but are you specifically referring to the entire corner or just the one property owner that has expressed opposition?
Specifically Mr. Smith's client's property.
It essentially would, if somebody did come in one day, whether it was an urban renewal authority or a private landowner and wanted to buy those parcels, as Mr. Smith mentioned, there's easements and agreements that kind of go across the different parcels there. So it could make the option to kind of assemble that land and then redevelop it less attainable, because only part of it would be rezoned to have that mixed-use development. I would say that's the one drawback I can think of.
Okay. Any more questions for staff? Any more questions?
Can I make a motion?
Sure.
Can I make a motion to have this continued until we get some more information on the letters and the surveys?
Someone have a second? Okay, I guess not, but...
Can I make a quick comment about, well, not so quick comment about this, but at least from my perspective, I'd like to talk about the winding road that we got on to where we ended up here tonight. When you do an urban renewal authority area, sometimes you need a little blight on one end and a little blight on the other end, kind of blight anchors, in order to have the urban renewal area. And then you look at some urban renewal areas like the one along Kipling. They actually included a park that's beautiful in that urban renewal area, because the tax increment financing has to be spent within the urban renewal area. So having that park inside the urban renewal area allows that tax increment financing to be spent there. And so when the boundaries were followed, that may not be the appropriate boundaries for rezoning. Unfortunately, we also had an election to remove the height and density. And the boundaries used for that urban renewal blight study were included for that. So it is the properties within this zoning that actually have the height and density restricted. And so that's how we end up here tonight using these boundaries. Now, when that happened, I promised myself that I would never support rezoning any property that the owner objected to. And I also listened to Mrs. Turner's objection on those people on the northeast corner of 44th and Wadsworth. And I am going to make a motion to exclude the northeast corner, because I also believe what Mr. Smith says is true. If you exclude only his property, there's not enough left there on the northeast corner to do mixed use. So I will, somewhere along the line, either make a motion or make an amendment to exclude the northeast corner.
All right.
Can I get a clarification? Just Mr. Smith's property or the entire northeast corner?
The entire northeast corner, because, as he said, if you exclude his property, there's some cross-parking agreements, and I know there's some transit agreements with the Jeffco Housing Authority to the north. And, if you take just that little strip that's left along 44th, that's not a big enough, that's not a deep enough strip to actually do mixed use in it. So the whole corner, the whole northeast corner, we may as well just exclude that from this rezoning.
Yes.
Sorry.
That's all right.
I'm looking at my map. So we have Wadsworth, we have the blue area, and then we go directly east all the way to Upham.
Yes.
And then we go up to whatever that little street is, not even a street. And then we go back west, then we veer over, and then we go a little on Vance, and then we go over, then we go up, then we go down 45th, and then we go down Wadsworth. So are you proposing this whole funky L shape?
I am proposing that whole funky L shape because I believe, in fact, what Mr. Smith says, that that part of that is tied up with interconnected easements. Part of it is not deep enough to actually do mixed use on it. So the whole idea of putting mixed use on that against the property owner's wishes and at the concern of the neighborhood is just not worth it.
But his property does not extend all the way to 45th, and it does not, I'm assuming, does not include Discount Tire and the shopping center that's there with the really good Chinese restaurant and others. So you're excluding property that possibly has recommending exclusion of property that has possibly said thumbs up.
I think that only goes up to the north side of the church. It does not go up to that shopping center where the new Canton is.
Yeah, discount is north of that.
Oh. So it does not include, it's outside that.
Holy Cross Lutheran.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That building.
Sorry.
Yes.
Thank you.
If there's no other discussion, I'd entertain a motion of some sort.
Okay, fine.
Right, Ann?
It's my last year on planning commission. Okay. Sorry, let me find a page. I move to recommend approval of case number WZ 1103, a request for a city-initiated zone change for neighborhood commercial, restricted commercial, commercial 1, commercial 2, and planned commercial development to mixed-use commercial for property located along Wadsworth Boulevard, generally between West 35th and West 45th Avenues for the following reasons. The proposed zoning change is consistent with the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan and the Wadsworth Corridor sub-area plan. The proposed zone change is compatible with the surrounding area. Any applicant for development under the proposed zoning would provide adequate utility upgrades where needed, and the proposed zone change will not adversely impact the public health, safety, or welfare.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
All right, discussion?
I move to amend that motion to exclude the northeast corner of 44th and Wadsworth.
I'll second that.
Could I get a clarification? You're moving to remove all property north of 44th and all property east of Wadsworth?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Discussion?
Can we vote on that particular one separately, I guess? Just to see if that particular motion passes? Yeah.
Yeah, you have
Yes.
to vote on the amendment and
Yeah.
then on the main motion.
Yes, do we have any discussion of that amendment before we take a vote? Okay.
Can we ponder for a second?
Yes. Yeah, I think good points were raised kind of in both areas there, so pondering is fine.
Question for staff, since we're going outside the urban renewal, since the proposed amendment goes outside the urban renewal boundaries, is there a positive or negative effect or repercussion for that?
By going outside, you mean now the rezoning area doesn't directly overlap with the...
Yes. Too bad we don't have Jerry here.
And the fact that this is something that's sponsored by the city, a rezoning process is a fairly expensive undertaking for a private property owner, so there's an advantage by having the city sponsor this. They also, would they be able to take it? They wouldn't be able to take advantage. Yeah, they would be able to take advantage of the, they wouldn't be able to take advantage, of the height and density allowances because of the zoning is C1, and so they're restricted compared to the rest of the properties in the urban renewal areas. That might get rezoned.
Were there any, Sarah or Meredith, were there any specific comments from property owners to the east of the Pep Boys area, directly north of the Panda Buffet there? And that?
No contact either way.
Okay. Has there been any discussion within staff or between property owners and staff or between the prospective developers of the current mixed-use commercial development to the south of 44th and staff about how rezoning property on the north side of 44th Avenue might impact development of the existing mixed-use commercial parcel to the south of 44th?
No, that hasn't really been discussed with them.
Okay.
So, while I respect the idea, I will say that I'm going to vote no on the amendment, because then your argument could be said that you need to take out the little RC area because it's too small of an area, and the two RC areas over here. The same argument could be made, and then we're going to start redrawing the boundaries. The fact that the applicant does not want the zoning doesn't mean that he has to change anything. He's not out of compliance. There's nothing that's going to affect the property negatively. He could stay like that until 2023 with no impacts at all. He doesn't go out of conformance. I don't see, and especially since there was no complaint, positive, negative, nothing from the applicant to the farther north, I am going to vote no.
Okay. Any other discussion, comment? Okay, then I'd like to ask for a vote on the amendment. Vote for is a vote for inclusion. Or inclusion is inclusion of the amendment. That's what I mean. Okay, let's vote.
Do we have everybody? Because the motion fails. Matthews and Gildner voting for the motion.
Despite the fact that it failed, I think it was definitely worth consideration. So I appreciate you. I appreciate you bringing it up. And again, Mr. Smith, I appreciate all of your comments in regards to that as well. Okay, so we voted on the amendment. Is there any discussion on the motion to approve the case as not amended? Okay, then I'd like us to vote on the motion then.
Okay, and that motion passes unanimously.
All right. Does anybody need a break? Is everybody good? Okay. All right, we'll move on to our next case. And again, thanks to everybody for their comments, thoughtful comments on the previous case. We'll move on to case number MS-11-01, an application filed by BCS Community Credit Union for a 4-lot consolidation plat on property zoned Commercial 1 located at 4203 Wadsworth Boulevard. And we have Meredith presenting for the staff. Okay.
Let me just get out of Sarah's. That's okay. Sarah, did you?
I'm trying to.
Did you? You didn't.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's a little further south.
Oh.
I was looking for it the other day. It's, oh, yeah. Yeah, okay.
Can we take a 2-second break?
Sure. In fact, I'd like to take a quick 5-minute break. We're adjourned for 5 minutes. 5 minutes? Yep.
Can I ask?
Okay, we're going to reconvene. Sarah, right before Meredith's presentation, Sarah had a quick note. Sarah had a quick note just regarding the last case, just something she wanted to add, just a little bit of information for you.
Yeah, I just had a point of clarification that Alan thought would be good to share, or Commissioner Buckman thought would be good to share with the group. When the question was asked by Commissioner Buckman about why we picked the urban renewal boundaries, because they can be kind of jagged, one thing that I failed to mention that I really should have, that Commissioner Matthews reminded me of, was one of the primary reasons we picked those boundaries is because it's only the urban renewal areas that were exempted from the height and density restrictions that are in the city charter. So we started to grab some other adjacent properties, then the mixed-use zoning essentially wouldn't work on those properties because they have height restrictions and density restrictions that don't align with the zoning. So we had to be consistent with that boundary, and I'm sorry I forgot to mention that earlier.
That's all right. We're all human. Okay, so case MC or MS-11-01, Meredith presenting for the city.
This is a request for a 4-lot consolidation plat on a property located at 42. Hello. Maybe I'll start over. This is the second time. Okay, third time. Meredith Reckert, Wheat Ridge Community Development Department Senior Planner. Case number MS-11-01 is a request for approval of a 4-lot consolidation plat, 4203 Wadsworth Boulevard. I'd like to enter into the record the subdivision regulations, the zoning ordinance, the case file, and packet materials, and the contents of this digital presentation. All notification and posting requirements have been met, therefore Commission does have jurisdiction to hear this case. Again, this is a 4-lot consolidation plat on property zone C1. The purpose of the request is to remove some internal lot lines for reuse of the property. I would point out that as this is being processed as a minor subdivision, we have no right-of-way dedications, therefore Planning Commission has the sole authority for approval or denial of this application. So you can see in the picture the outlines of the property. To the west is Wadsworth, to the south is 3 Acre Lane. It is currently comprised of 4 separate lots which were originally platted as part of the 3 acre subdivision. I believe that was a 1950s or 1960s plat. Most of the properties surrounding the subject site to the north and south, and then of course across Wadsworth into the Times Square Shopping Center, are all Zone C1 and have a variety of commercial uses. To the west of the site, which would be the left-hand side of the screen, are residentially zoned properties located further to the west on 3 Acre Lane. Current property is about 32,000 square feet in size. The existing structure on it is just a little bit over 3,100 square feet. It was formerly a fast food restaurant with a drive-through. Most recently, it was a KFC. However, the property has been unused for this use for about 3 years. There are 2 curb cuts there are 2 access points, one on Wadsworth towards the north end of the property, and then one over on the western side of the property on 3 Acre Lane. And I would point out that the BCS Credit Union, which is an existing credit union within the city, just north of 38th Avenue on Newland Street, has purchased the property. They do have the existing facility and have been there for probably 15 or 20 years. However, they have no drive-through facility, so it's the intent to close that one, repurpose this site to include a drive-through for the credit union. Let's take a look at some pictures of the site. I am standing on the huge barrier known as Wadsworth looking west. You can see the front of the property. This is that existing curb cut to Wadsworth, kind of up on the north end. Moving south across the site, this is the old drive-through component of the KFC operation. You can see the property's been somewhat neglected for the last few years. Here I'm looking, standing on 3 Acre Lane, looking east towards the intersection. It is signalized with Wadsworth, and you can see the Times Square shopping area to the east of Wadsworth in that picture. Again, the property would be over on the left-hand side. Now I'm, again, 3 Acre Lane vantage point, looking towards that side of the property. This is the south side of the building, that existing access point to 3 Acre Lane. Interior of the site, this is the south side of the property. Again, here's that drive-through, which is going to be repurposed for the credit union. And this is the north side. The issue we've got with the property is because it was platted back in the day, made up of these multiple lots. In order for them to come in and do a comprehensive remodel on it and to remove, to do a comprehensive remodel and be able to meet building codes, we have to get the lot lines to go away. And you can see how the property is currently chopped up. I've got these arrows that point to the existing lot lines. So we've got one here. There's another one down here. This is a little bit hard to read, but essentially, and it's not quite accurate, but it is comprised of 4 lots. This is the actual plat itself, the plat document. It's a one-page document. It has our typical plat declarations, legal descriptions, and so on and so forth. Again, the outline of the property with Wadsworth over on the east, 3 Acre Lane at this location on the south. Due to the fact that Wadsworth at some point might be widened in the future, Public Works has asked for a 26-foot reservation along this eastern property line. It's not a dedication, it's a reservation, and it is created into its own tracks so that if and when CDOT decides it's time to widen Wadsworth, they come in and purchase the property, and the property owner is given fair market value for the land purchase. There are no right-of-way dedications outright for Wadsworth at this time. They do have some public improvements in place, and with the redevelopment of the site, because it's got the drive-through, they will have to go through an SUP process. But this is the plat component. The SUP will be handled separately, and it starts out administratively. No dedications outright on Wadsworth, no dedications on 3 Acre Lane, and on the front side of the plat document, we did include kind of the boilerplate language that we always see for a plat, including utility language and then easement reservation. In review of this application, again, we're not talking about site design tonight. We're just looking at the platting component. Staff has concluded that the plat does meet all the requirements of the subdivision regulations. All of the agencies who we sent this application to referral can serve the property. Most of them already are. Some will require upgrades with the repurposing of the site. Let's see, I did indicate the couple things that came out a little bit interesting. Back in the early 80s, because of some of the capacity problems that Weaver Sanitation had, for a short period of time they were requiring holding tanks for the public sanitation service. This one actually has one on the property, and that will be one of the things we have to take a look at. They are still hooked up to public sanitation. Just at the time that they did some major remodeling, the sanitation district did not have adequate capacity, and I believe that problem is solved now. Public Works has indicated that the plat is approvable. They are requesting 26 feet of reservation along Wadsworth, and I forgot to delete this last sentence, so disregard that about Webster Street and the SIA, and I apologize about that. All of the other agencies can serve the property. Staff is recommending approval of this request. All requirements of the sub-regulations have been met. All utilities can serve. And we did include one condition, and that is that the language in the city certification block be slightly modified. Again, this application is just for the subdivision plat, so they can come in and go ahead with their request for special use permit. Property is zoned C1. In the C1 regulations, any facility that has a drive-through as a component, that whether it's fast food, a Starbucks, a drive-through liquor store, a bank, has to go through the SUP process, and that they have not applied for yet. So that concludes staff report.
Okay.
Questions?
Questions for Meredith? Questions for Meredith? All right. Thank you, Meredith. Do we have the applicant here tonight? Great. If you could, would you like to say anything?
Actually, I don't know if I can add anything more to
Well,
Meredith that's mentioned.
Okay. So no, nothing from the applicant. That's fine with us. I know this isn't the most controversial case we've heard, so that's not out of the ordinary. Meredith, the language on the in the city certification portion that has to be modified slightly. What do you know exactly what that is?
For some reason,
All right.
the surveyor didn't pick it up. The way the certification is shown on there now, it implies that it went to city council for hearing.
Ah, yep.
And when we have a plat that stops right at planning commission, instead of saying approve this blank day by the Wheat Ridge City Council, it says approve this blank day by the city of Wheat Ridge. Mayor still has to sign it. It still has to be sealed, but city council will not be reviewing this. So it's a minor tweak.
Okay. All right. All right. I'll entertain a motion then. Do we have it? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Forgive me. If anybody would like to comment on this case, we'd love to hear any comments you might have. And if not, that's fine too. Yeah, just come up and give us your name and address.
My name's Tammy Kaiser, and I live 2 houses west of the credit union. We're happy to see something there because it is pretty worn down and trashy looking. But my question was, we were concerned tonight that they were going to move the lot and take the house next to us, and then we were going to be right next to you, and it's just like, just being right commercial to residential. But I was just wondering, when you're consolidating lots, will that still fit into the same rezoning where you have to put a buffer between the residential and or are you just going to keep the same buffer that you have?
Meredith, if you'd like to answer directly, that's fine with me.
Hi, Tammy. Thanks for coming, you guys, and sticking around. Actually, they are keeping the existing lot area that you see on the overhead. They do have to install some landscaping along that western property line, which typically is 6 feet of width, planted with a 6-foot-high solid fence. And that's the standard requirement. They are proposing, and I didn't show the site plan tonight because it's not really what we're discussing.
Yeah, that's not what we're
But they do plan on doing some substantial improvements as far as the landscaping and reconfiguration of the parking area and the drive-through, and also some pretty nice facade improvements. And we are extremely happy to see something happening with this property after so many years. We also believe that this bank use will be less impactful to the neighborhood. Before, it's been a fast food restaurant. Fast food restaurants can be open 24 hours a day. This is a credit union. They're like 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. So from a neighborhood protection perspective, we think it's better for everybody. So.
And again, this is just a hearing to address basically legal consolidation of the ownership of the property. The SUP will be much more detailed in terms of where the drive-through is and what the building's like and what the landscaping's like and so on and so forth. So,
and actually, Tammy, just to interject here, if I may, when we go through that SUP process, there will be they have to go through a public noticing, so there will be signs put on the property, and you and your husband are certainly welcome to come into the city and take a look. Give me a call, and we can discuss what's being proposed so you can actually see for yourself.
Okay, and then I had another question. This maybe doesn't pertain, but the renewal project, originally you were talking about possibly taking the light out right there at 3 Acre Lane, and there is so much traffic on our street, and I just wanted you to consider that before you guys, right now with the Action Recycling, it is just, people use our street to turn around, and we'll never get past our light if we don't have a light. I mean, anyway, and with a new credit union coming in, that's going to be more of a need for that light, so I just thought I would just bring that up, because I know that that's been talked about, that we possibly will have no light. And I realize there's only 5 people who live, or 5 homes there, but there's also a business and another one coming, and we seem to be a turnaround. They use their street all the time for that, so. But no, we just thought maybe the lots were getting, the businesses were creeping up closer to us, and it was feeling crowded. So that's why we came, and I realized maybe I'm not here for the right reasons, so I'll let you go. But
That's fine. I appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Is there any more questions for staff? Okay, I'll entertain a motion then on the case.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion. I move to approve case number MS-11-01, a request for approval of a 4-lot consolidation plat on C1 zone property located at 4203 Wadsworth for the following reasons. Number 1, all requirements of Article 4 of the Zoning and Development Code have been met. Number 2, all utility providers can serve the property. With the following condition, the language for the city certification please slightly modified.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? Okay, vote, please. All right. Commissioner Ohm. Okay, other items. We've got a 38th Avenue corridor plan update.
And actually, I don't really have an update. Neither Sally or Sarah had prepared anything to be included in the packet, but I do want to remind the Commission that we've got the joint study session with City Council on June 20th to try to get you together as a group and give you an update. And so I know Scott's been really good about coming to the meetings, and so for those who haven't attended, it might be very interesting. So I believe that's correct, Tracy. Yeah. So hope to see you there, and I don't think we have anything else.
No, there's nothing else on the agenda. Does anyone else have anything?
I just want to mention to anybody who's still watching that there is a Wheat Ridge Garden Tour, the first annual, the 26th. You buy your tickets. You can't buy them in advance. You buy your tickets at the Richards Hart Estate, which is the estate in the District 1 on 25th or 26th. I can't remember. You can't miss it. It's a beautiful estate with that they usually have the Arbor Day festivities at. It goes from 9:30 to 3:30, and it sounds like Scott is going to be participating. And you want to?
I'll be helping kind of give a tour of my neighbor's yard. So, as a landscape architect, I can probably fill people in some plants, and I'll have to chat with people.
What was the date again? It's the 26th, which is a Sunday, June, from 9:30 to 3:30. You buy your tickets there at the Richards Hart, and they usually give you a map. It costs $10. This is supported by Live Well Wheat Ridge, as well as the Cultural Commission, as well as I know there's another producible agriculture. There's another group. I'm sorry for forgetting, but trying to get the word out there.
Great. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, then I'll accept a motion to adjourn if anyone has one.
I move to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Vote, please. Not fast enough. Yes. Yes. All right, then we're adjourned. Thanks very much.